Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, President Rex. It's going to be tough to follow that presentation. So, as you know, I am the External Vice President of the Chamber, and along with Mr. Lal, we share the responsibility of the Vice Presidentship of the Chamber. I'm going to try and keep my presentation as brief as possible, but my role today is to just walk you through a number of the various government meetings, position papers that we have been involved with since our board came on earlier this year. When our board was inducted, we quickly had to jump into this role because of this, I don't know if most of you remember, but we were faced with a problem with the TRV visa. So upon our induction, we quickly had to get into the groove of meeting with first the previous government, because the Bureau of Immigration was about to leave. And as you might all know, that we were successful in getting the TRV problem resolved. Since then, we've had a number of meetings with various government organizations, and I'm here to highlight some of them today. So both me and Vice President Lal will take you through the following topics, where we're going to highlight our courtesy calls, the position papers and government hearings that we were part of, the position papers that we have submitted, and as President Rex has alluded to, a lot of this work had to be done by members of the board, because we don't have the management or the capacity to outsource that. Next, we'll do a quick highlight on the GMMs we've had and the lessons learned, as well as the other concerns that we as a chamber need to have moving forward in 2017. So our first courtesy call was the meeting with Bureau of Immigration Commissioner Heron, and as well as the Board of Commissioners of the Bureau of Immigration and the staff of Senator Obama Aquino. This is what I just alluded to a few minutes ago, where we needed to reinstate the TRV being used by Indian nationals, and at the same time it gave us the opportunity to provide a position paper in conjunction with the Indian Embassy, highlighting reciprocity and giving examples from our other neighboring countries. Upon studying what was going on, we found out that Korean nationals and Chinese nationals were extended better services than Indians, with the assumption that their governments were offering Filipinos going overseas to Korea and China better services. And we found out that in fact, Philippine nationals going to India were receiving these, but the opposite was not happening. And with the position paper and through the staff of Senator Bam's support, we were able to get this overturned. Next, we were able to re-establish closer ties with our sister chamber, the Federation of Chinese Chamber of Commerce. This has been an amazing collaboration with them. So now that we are taking a more active role with the various technical working groups of the government, we find that the Chinese chamber, which is made up a lot of business owners such as ours, actually face the same identical problems. We had the same resolutions or the same suggestions when it came to the labor issue. We had the exact same suggestions when it came to tax. And partnering with them gave us a more amplified reach. They're a much larger chamber in terms of number of members. And when we put our heads together, we were able to bring up the same topics and the same suggestions to the government. And I think that has a tremendous effect in that. Also, we've been invited to meetings that we would have never otherwise been invited to had it not be for them. And I'm happy to say now we're also reciprocating the same to them. Next, we had the opportunity to meet with our Commissioner of Bureau of Customs, Commissioner Feldon. There we were able to discuss problems affecting the importers. Again, that meeting with him brought about an invitation to join their TWGs, and Mr. Lal will take you through what we discussed with them as well. Next, we had a meeting with the Bureau of Investigation, Mr. Dante Kiran. Here we discussed the potential need to contact his office in the event that there are any security concerns involving our chamber and community members. As you all know, earlier this year we had a change in administration, so we really took it upon ourselves to meet as many of the governmental agencies available to us, because we never know when us as a chamber with any of our members would require their assistance. Next, we met the incoming Commissioner of Bureau of Immigration, Honorable Jaime Morante, along with the Associate Commissioners Al Agrosino and Michael Robles. Here we brought about again the various problems that were brought to our attention by the members or the Indian community, like the delays in the processing of iCard, the lack of a new visa type eligible to our community. And again, these were all formally submitted to them after our meetings with them. This goes back to what President Rex mentioned in the earlier meeting. As we're doing this, we don't intend to just do this with the suggestions of our board. So we do send out emails, and we would really encourage everyone, if you have suggestions, if you have comments, please write to us, email us, call us, so we can include all these comments when we write them. Sometimes we're due to time, we have no choice but to do this. We've had instances where we've been given 2 days notice, so as you can imagine, it'll be difficult for us to send out an email and wait for responses, so we've had no choice but to do it on our own. But rest assured, as Mr. Lal will take you through, these all have suggestions coming from the board and have all of our joint requirements in mind. Lastly, we had a meeting with DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez, where we were able to discuss concerns on labor-only contracting, a topic that we all had problems with. The high destination charges by shipping companies in the form of emergency cost recovery and container imbalance charges. We've also had an opportunity to give him a number of our proposals, which are on his table for consideration, which includes the creation of electronic matching of buyers and sellers, the possible proactive participation with negotiable programs by our members, the creation of Process Audit Commission to cut red tape and redundancy and improve ease of doing business. We were able to attend a TWG with regards to this, and I'll highlight that later as well. We were able to talk to him for the DTI to act for and behalf of business in the manner that the Department of Labor acts in behalf of labor on matters affecting business. We also brought up a proposal of a retirement scheme whereby the payment by employers of the retirement benefits of an employee with the monthly paycheck to an independent agency as part of the monthly paycheck. And this would be a means for accumulating lifetime retirement benefit for the employee under a regime with the option for us to terminate. So this was part of the number of suggestions that we brought about when we were discussing the possible changes to the labor regulations. Lastly, it was the creation of a multi-sectoral group comprising of Secretaries of Trade and Finance, the Commissioner of Customs, Internal Revenue, the Senate and the House Chairman on Trade and Labor, head representatives of the Mayor's League of all cities in Metro Manila, and head of foreign local chambers of commerce. When I run through the list later on, you will see that a lot of the activities that we've had to do, we actually have to do at one government agency at the time. And a lot of the comments and suggestions that we're bringing about actually, in fact, involve multiple agencies. And sometimes a lot of other chambers have similar concerns. And so we hope that by coming up with this larger group, it would make a lot easier for us to send over our suggestion, our comments, when everybody who's responsible for that change is in the same room, rather than doing it one agency at a time. Next, we are going to be discussing really quickly again the participation that we've had in government hearings and technical working groups. The first one we were attended to was the Bureau of Customs, where we did a hearing on the IRR of the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. We also did the hearing of the IRR for de minimis rule under the CMTA, which involves the shipments of value less than 10,000. Again, it's not enough time for us to go through everything that was discussed, but details are going to be provided for everyone. And if you guys have any specific questions, then those of us who are here will be happy to answer it for you. We also attended a Senate hearing by the Committee on Trade, which was led by Senator Mig Zubiri, and we were able to discuss topics were amendments to the anti-red tape law, enhancing the ease of doing business, and legislation on deadline of permits. This is very exciting for all of us business owners because, as we all know, doing regular business permits, mayor's permits, has been really, really tedious. We were there to discuss with the senator's team, and we gave them suggestions, and we have had a little bit of an advanced insight on what the senator and his team are working on, and we know that it's going to be welcome news to the business organization because it has a lot to do with speeding up of the process, a lot to do with cutting out of the red tape, and this is really exciting news for all of us. Next, we attended a Senate hearing on tax reform, which was with the Committee on Ways and Means headed by Senator Juan Edgardo Angara, on the Department of Finance proposed tax reforms. Mr. Lal will take you through that in further detail as well. Here we discussed the proposed changes to the income tax brackets, the proposed simplification of tax computation for personal income, the proposed changes in lifting of VAT exemptions, increase in vehicle excise taxes, and excise taxes on fuel. I would now like to call on my co-vice president, Mr. Lal, to discuss the remainder of the products.
Thank you, Raj. I'm not going to walk up and down the stage. My doctor has told me I don't need to walk 2 kilometers a day. That's only for reps. So anyway, my task tonight is to basically present to you the proposals that we have given to government. This board has been quite fortunate to have the opportunity of being heard by senators, by congressmen, by the cabinet, and by the cabinet. And surprisingly, what we realized is that these people are just waiting to hear our concerns, hear our proposals, and incorporate them into what they would come up with as new laws. It's the first time for me to have such an experience, and I realized how much time we lost in the previous years for not focusing on this as much. I'm not saying we didn't make an attempt, but today we have a lot of problems facing us only because the law has already been passed and we can't do anything. And even if we go to an agency and tell them this is wrong, their hands are tied, they're handcuffed, they have to follow the law. Otherwise they go to jail. So, we've learned a lot of things, and that's going to be in my last slide, lessons learned. For now, allow me to present to you the proposals that we have submitted so far, the position papers that we have submitted. Some you may not totally agree with. Others, I hope you are in agreement. What I'd like to emphasize as well is that when opportunities like this arise, sometimes you don't have enough time to consult everybody. Being your representatives, being your directors, we take the task of evaluating and trying to come up with proposals on our own, which we feel are best suited for our needs and our concerns. So, if I may go through this, the first position paper we submitted during the past few months was the position paper that we submitted to the Bureau of Immigration, which went through successfully and resulted in the restoration of the TRV. We had 48 hours within which to submit the position paper. We got the help of Senator Bam Aquino, Commissioner Ron himself, Ambassador Ralte and the Indian Embassy officers, and the law firm of Batuhan, Blando, Concepcion, and Trillana. All this done in 48 hours. So, having done that, it gave us more encouragement to do other position papers as well. And the next position paper that we submitted was to the Department of Labor. As you all know, we had a session on ENDO, and from that we learned a lot. We got the support of USECSI. We got the assistance of Attorney Paul Sangalang, and who helped us draft a position paper. But the position paper he drafted was originally something that was the conventional, agreeing with the government that we should end, that contractual labor should not be there. We instead combine both the existing law, how to go about complying with it, and yet trying to meet the needs of the present business regimes. So the first proposal that we made was to update and modernize our labor code. This is a very old labor code, and the concept of contractual employment is a more recent development. There was no such thing in the past. If ever there was, it was more for farming. So that was the first. Second, redefining security of tenure. Japan was known to be a country that hired you till you died. Your first and last job would be in one company. But today that's no longer valid in modern times. Today you can be hired and your skills tomorrow will no longer be valid. So there's a lot of change. Technology has disrupted a lot of industries. So the government cannot insist on doing this. This definition of security of tenure has to be changed in the first place. Third, we need to provide for contractual employment as a system or category of employment. We cannot say no more contractual employment. Our logic behind this was basically Filipino overseas contract workers go abroad. They go by the hundreds of thousands and millions. But they're covered by contracts. So why does the Constitution now discriminate local labor employment against the foreign labor employment? So this is the logic that we presented. It cannot be that we're covered by one set of rules and yet another set of rules applies to foreign labor. So going with this, we are saying that is needed in today's business environment. We're not saying that we will allow abusive practices. We're just saying we need to change our mindset. We're thinking out of the box. Number 4, focus on penalizing abusive and non-compliant businesses, business establishments and agencies, which is a given. I don't think anybody in this chamber is falling in this category. Next, Department of Labor programs. Department of Labor to adopt programs to provide new skill sets for aging and redundant employees. We have a lot of instances that an employee is no longer fit in the organization because of changing technology. It's happened to our company. Fortunately, we've been able to find means of making them adopt, but not everybody can do it. Next, we need to have the Department of, we need to have DOLE hire and train more labor law compliance officers who are fair and just in dealing with the business sector. Right now, when you enter the Department of Labor premises, they point to you at the signboard and say, this is the Department of Labor, we will take the side of labor. We need to change that mindset as well. Number 7, provide ample time for the principal employers and contractors for voluntary compliance with the law if ever when the final rules come out. Because right now, a lot of it is still in the gray area. Number 8, establish guidelines that would provide for and allow termination of employees based on valid grounds and a properly documented performance management appraisal system, or PMAS. And lastly, and to me this is the most important, is we have recommended to establish a retirement pay and pension system which is totally independent of the social security system. This would be a means of satisfying and complying with the provisions of the law for security of tenure. The concept behind this is that each employee would have a separate retirement fund. When an employee works for a company, they're entitled to approximately 22 days per year for every year of service. Now, they lose that when they are contractual because they stay for one period of 5 or 6 months and stay for another period and the retirement pay benefit does not accrue. So for me, our approach with the Department of Labor is security of tenure in today's business environment refers to the retirement pay. So what we are proposing basically is every time an employee is, a person is employed in a business enterprise, his retirement pay accumulates. So next year, if he goes to another firm, that accumulates as well. Now, how does it accumulate? Because with every paycheck, an equivalent of 6.5% will be added and paid for by the company as an automatic retirement pay that goes to a different government agency that will now manage the retirement fund. So even if an employee changes employers 20 times in his lifetime or 30 times in his lifetime and serves each employee only an average of 1 year, his retirement fund still accumulates, it stays in place. Now, we feel that this proposal would be a good exchange for the right to terminate, like what they have in the USA. In the USA, you get a pink slip, it's goodbye. You don't have to explain anything. So this now to us is a compromise. The few secretaries and government officials that Rex brought this up to, at first they couldn't believe it, and then they realized, yes, this is something that's totally new, this is out of the box, and it could resolve the problem of the retirement benefit. So basically, this is a portable retirement benefit that moves from one company to another, not necessarily the fund, but the retirement period accumulates every time you get employed. And that would now be managed by the government. Also, for us as businessmen, it's very tough or it becomes a burden if all of a sudden you wake up after 20 years of business that you realize 50% of your employees are already going to avail of retirement in the next few years. So all of a sudden you have to fund that retirement pay. Whereas if you paid every paycheck, it's over and done with. Now, whoever is managing the fund sees to it grows, and that will now be with the government and not with the businesses. So far, there's been no negative reaction, I think, and those whom we have presented this to have taken it very positively. As I've mentioned to several members before, we submit proposals on what we feel is good. Now, our members may feel differently, but we will know only if you tell us what your concerns are. We've heard a few of the members, we sat down with them as well, and we came up with this. There's no guarantee the government will listen or implement. No, there's no guarantee the government will implement. They've listened. And Rex has done a good job with that. But we need to now follow it through and attend the hearings that will be coming up. The next is our position papers for the Senate Committee on Trade. The proposals submitted on the position paper on ease of doing business are as follows. Number 1, simplify all aspects of trade and business activities. Today what you see on the screen is just an outline. We've given specific examples in our position papers, and many of these is a common concern not just of the Chinese Chamber, but other business organizations as well. I'll give you a good example, which I think we may also start working on, is Bureau of Food and Drug. To get a permit today is like going through the eye of a needle for some products. We have proposals that are out of the box that we hope will be listened to and accepted when we do make our proposals to them. Number 2, remove and reduce all activities that just increase red tape, redundancy, and efficiency. Again, we've given specific examples on this. Number 3, repeal laws, rules, and regulations that do not make sense and do not contribute to increasing trade and efficiency. Number 4, provide financing to small and medium enterprises and other means of support. Number 5, allow competition in industries and sectors that have not been served well by local players. We've mentioned basically the shipping industry, we have telecom, we have other industries as well, which we have cited. Number 6, improve infrastructure to provide a more efficient and economical means of transport, travel, and communications. Number 7, automatic approval for all government permits within 30 days from the acceptance of complete requirements. This has been the basic, the common problem being raised by many of the organizations. Number 8, which is something that President Duterte surprisingly also included in one of his speeches, integration of fire department permits with the rest of city hall permits. A lot of us have encountered getting business permits and after 3 months, getting the fire inspector coming in and complaining that we haven't complied. So, number 9, renewal of permits should take no longer than 48 hours with business permits, for business permits. So it should take no longer than 48 hours. And they should be valid for 5 years and renewable for 5 years thereafter. Basically the same as driver's licenses now. Although we still have to get our plastic cards. Number 10, renewal of business permits to be done on a staggered schedule based on TIN numbers or based on any other method. Right now, business permits, all business permits nationwide, you have January 20 as a deadline. Those who have several stores, those who have several locations, go through a nightmare. And even City Hall goes through a nightmare because the deadline is the same for everybody the whole year. What we're proposing is staggered. Every 15 days, maybe TIN numbers ending 0 and 1, January 15, January 20, 2 and 3 would be on February 5, and so forth. Staggering it. Number 11, adopt a staggered submission of annual income tax based on the last digit of the TIN number. In the same way, start April 15, April 30, May 15, May 30. Anyway, the bulk of income taxes are already covered by withholding taxes. What is left is a smaller portion. So there's no issue for that. Right now, anybody who wants to file taxes online cannot do so because it's clogged. They're not able, we have instances where we have to go manual. So this would also ease up, and it does not make sense to have a common date as a deadline. Number 12, creation of a central depository data bank for personal and business documents. We have instances wherein we have to deal with 10 agencies, and each agency needs a copy of our SEC papers. They should have access to that central depository, and we don't need to submit, just give the number. Number 11, include in the educational curriculum subjects that will introduce and engage the students in business, encourage them to be entrepreneurs, and understand the importance of paying taxes. Number 14, level the playing field for everyone. Foreign versus local, small versus big. That way, it gives us equal opportunity. We've had so many instances wherein foreign companies get a preference, be it location in the mall or tax exemptions. Number 15, regulate foreign shipping lines and on how much they charge. And the last, number 16, creation of a commission on national efficiency and process audit to review government regulations with the aim of removing redundancy and increasing efficiency. Actually, there is already one that is focusing on this, which is the National Competitive Commission, and this would be in line with that. The next one is our proposal to the Committee on Ways and Means under Senator Angara. We received a request from the Office of Senator Angara asking for our position on the Department of Finance Tax Reform Package 1. They've split the tax reform into several packages. Package 1 covered changes in the income tax, changes in the VAT, and changes in excise taxes for fuel and excess taxes on vehicles. For personal income tax, our proposals were as follows. Letter A, again, this is out of the box. It is something that may not pass legislation, but we feel we have enough reason to put this as our position. Number one, removal of the tax exempt bracket for minimum wage earners and replace it with a 3% nominal tax rate. This is, some may say this is anti-poor. But what we have realized is that the current income tax bracket that exempts minimum wage earners from tax has created a loophole. The loophole being, if you increase the salary of a minimum wage earners by even 20 pesos, that 20 pesos gets wiped out because now they're subject to tax. So they get less. So what do the companies do? They now put it as an allowance, they don't reflect it in the books. So who's fooling who? The government is fooling itself. So our proposal basically is, number one, remove those loopholes. Number two is give everybody a sense of responsibility to pay their fair share of taxes. And to us, 3% is a very fair share for income up to 400,000. I'll show you the tax table in a while. Now, third is that by having each person conscious about the need to pay taxes, even though it's 3%, it does not give them a mindset that I don't have to pay taxes at all. Because what's happening now, as the minimum wage goes up, the income tax exemption also goes up. So at the end of the day, after 20 years, if they do not improve their skills, they'll be minimum wage earners and never pay any tax. And yet they're the ones also using public services. It's not fair. So we have come up with that proposal. Next is establish a graduated income tax rate of 3% to a maximum of 25% versus the current 32%, I believe. Third is a proposal for a simplified tax computation based on gross income. Letter D, to have proposal to have personal income tax cover self-employed individuals, professionals who opt to pay a straight tax based on gross income in lieu of submitting detailed returns. On the corporate level and business entities, we have proposed or established a graduated tax rate starting at 15% to a maximum of 25%. The rationale behind this is that we have small businesses and we can encourage them rather than stay out of the radar and not register at all, have a low tax rate. Start at 15. So 3 tax rates, you'll see that in this schedule later. We would have 15, 20, 25. The 15% and 20% brackets will basically support SMEs whose income levels are lower. Today, there's a bill filed in the Senate that specifically exempts SMEs with the sales of up to 50 million a year. Again, to me, that is a loophole. And there's no point in coming up with new laws for SMEs alone that would not, again, support our focus on having a level playing field. Letter C, sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporation will be covered by the same tax rates. If you are an individual engaged in business, you'd be covered by this, not by the individual personal. And then lastly, 25% is the maximum tax bracket. What is now being proposed in the Senate is a tax bracket of up to 35% for those who earn way above, let's say 30 million, 20 million, 30 million. We are saying no, it should be up to 25%. Mainly because once it goes above 25%, people will be very creative And I know some people can be very creative and find ways of not paying at all. So even that will be a loss to the government. These are the tax tables we have submitted. If you'll see, I hope you can still see it. First 400,000 is 3% rate, or a maximum of 12,000 pesos, which is very low, reasonable. I don't think anybody will object to that. The next from 400 to 800,000 is at 6%, and even if you earn 800,000, the maximum you pay would be 36,000, or an effective rate of 4.5. The next is at 10%, and with a maximum level of 1.5 million, you pay only 106,000, or an effective rate of 7%, because it's the first 400, next 400, and then so on. The highest bracket would be 5 million and above, on which we are proposing 25%. Under this proposal, what we have come up with is that income taxes for individuals should be simplified, meaning it should include all previously tax-exempt items. So an employee who is up to 400,000 would now, that 400,000 would include all allowances, all salaries, allowances, commissions, de minimis allowances, and so forth. Things that were previously being kept off the books would now be possible to put in the books and make yourself start fresh. That way also it's easy for companies, since it's based on gross income, regardless of how much is deducted for SSS, regardless how much is deducted for Pag-ibig and PhilHealth, it is the gross pay that is referred to in computing the tax. This again, out of the box, this is something that we don't know if the senators will agree or they'll consider it a political thing, but we hope it deserves their attention and merits their approval. For the next table, we have the proposals that we gave for corporate and business enterprises. First bracket would be up to 1.5 million with a tax base of 15% only. So if you declare a 1.5 million income, your maximum income tax will be only 225,000. For the next 1.5 million, it would be a 20% tax, and the total tax payable would be 525,000, or only 17.5%. And the highest bracket of 3 million and above, if you are declaring 3 million, you pay only 1 million. If you're declaring 5 million, you're paying only 1 million. If you declare 10 million, you pay only 2.2. If you have 20 million income, you pay only 4.7, and 50 million, only 12 million. So the effective rate, the highest effective rate, even at 50 million, would be 24.5%. Again, we have put this in, and we hope it deserves their merit. We need to emphasize, though, that we are now entering a change globally that monitors money transfers, that monitors income. And very soon, we'll have a situation wherein we feel that if we have not been able to pay our full fair share, we need to. Because keep in mind, if A does not pay his fair share, the burden of A now goes to B. And for over the last 10 years, I have been B. I've had to pay the fair share of those who don't pay. So we need to make changes, and we need to give back now that we are all in a better place. Next, other comments on tax reforms that we have submitted. I hope I'm not boring everybody. This just a few more sheets. Number one is the tax loopholes need to be plugged. Number two, or letter B, is level the playing field for all business. And letter C is tax brackets to be reviewed every 5 years. And On the other points that were taken up by the Department of Finance, next sheet, next slide, we have given our affirmative stand on the reduction of income tax rates, strict enforcement of business registrations, and removal. And we have also endorsed a removal of non-VAT enterprise category, as that has created loopholes, and removal of VAT exemption on senior citizens discount privileges, which has also created a lot of loopholes and unnecessary paperwork, and limiting VAT zero rating to direct exports. We have also given our affirmative position on adjustment of excise taxes for petroleum products and restructuring of excise taxes for luxury cars. On the Bureau of Customs de minimis rules, we have aired our concerns that this will not necessarily help. The main objective of the Customs and Modernization Act, as far as increasing the de minimis benchmark to 10,000, was that it would ease up processing. It is not true. It will not happen, because each package that arrives still has to go through the processing of approximately 300 to 500 peso payment. So that procedure is still there. Second, it will create an imbalance in the playing field, mainly because anybody who imports worth 10,000 will get it import duty and tax-free. Imagine yourself as importing in bulk, let's say cell phones, and you have to pay duties and taxes and VAT. And yet somebody who imports a cell phone from China online doesn't even have to pay any duties, does not even have to pay VAT. It's zero VAT. How do you now compete with that? Plus, very soon, you'll have Amazon opening in Singapore, you'll have free shipping. AliExpress having free shipping. So that's going to create an imbalance in the level playing field. The only beneficiaries of this, the way we look at it, is the courier companies. The volume goes up. Fourth, this will favor only cross-border. The Philippines is not a net beneficiary of the opening of trade, because what can we export as compared to other countries? So we are at a disadvantage. And lastly, this will create a loophole for smuggling. Raj will go on with the next slide. General membership meetings, that will be handled by Raj. Is Raj around? Oh, you're there.
Gentlemen, I think in the interest of time, since we have a few other things to cover, I will, the basic next slide was just to discuss or highlight the various general membership meetings that we've had, the details of which are presented on the President's report, which is on your tables. And for those of you who were actually attended these meetings, then the discussions that were taken you were present for those discussions. Yeah? So I'd like to just move on to the next topic in that sense. I'd like to now call on our Chairman of the Commission on Trade, Director Minu, please.
So folks, they've explained what has happened so far. Minu here will tackle what the trade portfolio of our chamber should be looking like if we're able to get the right resources and the right logistics behind this.
I'm sorry it took very long today, but a little more patience. Good evening, everybody. Saruche. I would like to begin with a quotation which says, "When you have reached your own borders of success, the only way to go beyond your borders is a bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, our presentation tonight is about our bridge, which is our organization. We shall have a quick presentation with only 5 short topics. First is the project goal. Second is who would merit from this goal and how they could merit. Third is how the metrics on how to gauge our success in achieving our goal. Fourth are the next steps we propose to make. And lastly, an indicative timetable for us to know where we should be as we face the rest of 2017. Our project goal . Our project goal is not novelty, but about how we propose to execute it. Our goal is for this Indian Chamber of Commerce to be a major catalyst for business commerce, evidenced by bilateral or multilateral agreements and joint ventures towards business growth achieved within 2017 and onwards. With the Indian Chamber at the hub of all the beneficiaries, we will be the bridge for the more interdependence among the members of this chamber, tying up with other local companies in the Philippines, assisting foreign Indian investors to come into this country, to find opportunities to jointly work with other local chambers, and to actively reach out to the rest of the world in terms of joint undertakings and commercial agreements. Beneficiaries for the FICCI members. We recognize that the most important beneficiary of this chamber are the members themselves. Benefits are possible if we scan ourselves. What if some of our members could be our suppliers? What if some of our members could be our new markets? What if some of our members could be our new joint venture partners? What if we could pursue together projects together? What if we could be a stronger voice for our particular industry? What if we could lobby as a stronger voice, as a group for better concessions? Where could we start? In the interest of balancing confidentiality with opportunity, I recommend that we start with an industry directory. Not only should we have an industry directory amongst us, but it should go further by getting an indicative need. If we could add what opportunity each one of is looking for, then significant insights and working relations could be born from this. We can find multiple opportunities with local business. Our chamber could act as a business matching agent. How? Sponsor 2 business matching forums for 2017. This is regularly done by other chambers. I personally attended a chamber where a business matching activity is done. Foreign companies presented their products and services and local companies attended. After the forum, then local attendees proceed to several booths and explore of being a supplier or a distributor. We could also do the same. Over the past months that I've sat on our committee, I've personally received numerous queries and emails from large Indian companies from our own place. So many have expressed interest to come to the Philippines. I received so many inquiries and emails that I could not even send them all out. There's so many. I hope we could take advantage of this. These queries include new products like corn, rice, wheat, seeds, metals, minerals, spices, dry herbs, flowers, engineering spare parts, electricals, food, preservatives, handicraft, tiles, global logistics, solar power manufacturing. FICCI could be the bridge to initiate partnership with our members or partnership with local companies. Reaching out to other chambers could lead to new ideas. For example, several of us are in the BPO space, and there is another member in another chamber who has a lot of educational content and mentoring experience. Imagine what we could do together if this could be offered to America, so they could outsource online educational tutorials. New markets. Our business does not end here. It is now a flat globe with no boundaries. By pursuing collaborative ventures with other chambers, there's a good chance that we could pursue opportunities not just in Philippines, but in other countries as well. Having new suppliers is another area to justify. Why we should reach out to other chambers? Distinct to the Philippines is that there is monopoly of distribution. That is because there are language and geographical differences. Other chambers may enable us to touch base with new distributors, new wholesalers, new partners. We could lobby together for some concessions. For example, on tax, percent of ownership in mining. There could be a fusion of lobbying strength. Until 1.5 decades ago, the engines of the world growth were the consuming population of US with 73 million in disposable income, Europe's 350 million, Japan 120 million. That's just 500 million worth of consumers. Guess what? When the economies of these three engines went down over the past few years, the world still turned and realized that there are new consumer powers to serve. You have China, 200 million, with people with disposable consumer income. India has 250 million, Asia 550 million. Put together, that's 1 billion worth of consumers to do business with. Being in the Philippines is a doorstep away from ASEAN free trade, AFTA. Joint ventures with other countries allow us strategic entry into the other lands. For example, Century Tuna, they put up a plant in Papua New Guinea because it allows tax-free exports to Europe. RD Tuna of General Santos City put up a plant in Indonesia. Why? Which allows tax-free exports to the Arab and Muslim countries. These are the synergies and advantages to be sought and tapped. If we can agree that this is how we can work together, how then do we measure our proof of success? If we can have at least 4 successful business agreements, we know our journey as a chamber was worth it. Next steps. Appoint our secretariat as the directory custodian. Appoint our secretariat as the directory custodian of setting a business matching committee. Secretariat will email you a simple list requesting the following: the industry category, type of suppliers, company name, client of or markets you may still need, business partners you may need. we consolidate this directory and send it to you through email. We would like to start the clock ticking. To be transparent with expectations, we propose the following milestones. Exploring network opportunities within members in the first quarter. Second quarter, provide list to the other chambers. Third quarter, we hold a business forum and invite selected clients. Fourth quarter, invite foreign Indian investors to business matching forums. 2018, reach out to AFTA for the Philippines and write the perks. Teamwork is spelled this way because team should always come first before the work. Thank you for listening and good evening to all.
Thanks, Minu. Guys, we're almost done. Please bear with us. Director Arjun Shroff, our Chairman Committee on Membership Services. This is going to be really quick.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have been warned to be quick, so you better pay your attention on the board. Not on your cell phones, not on anything, but look at my face. Thank you very much for your attention. Can you read?
That has been the best presentation so far, I must say. Amazing. Good job, buddy. Okay, and finally, the meat of tonight's presentation is our dear treasurer, Paresh. Please bear with us. It's about 5 slides, but this is probably the most important part of this evening's presentation.
Okay, I just have 7 slides to present to you. It's basically the 2017 budget proposal and our proposal for next year's increase in membership dues. Allow me to present to you what the other foreign chambers in our category do charge for membership dues. Kindly take note that most of these dues that they are paying does not include any free meals that comes with our chamber. At present, we are collecting 15,000 per year or 13,500 net. For budgetary purposes, we only consider 13,500 because most of us or all of us take advantage of the 10% discount which we enjoy if we pay on or before February 28. Okay. Okay. taking a look at the different chambers, you can see that they are charging, some are charging 50,000, 55,000, 45,000, 22,000, 20,000. And if you count the meals that during meetings, it is not included in this cost. Look at the other chambers, the Nordic Chamber, the Australia and New Zealand Chamber, the Spanish Chamber. Either they give 1 or 2 meals free or nothing is free at all. So based on the direction which you have heard, the amount of work that has been done by the board in the last 9 months, and the direction that we want to take in for next year, we definitely need to do some adjustments in our membership dues. What we have done is to prepare 3 separate proposals of membership dues. The first one is if we collect 20,000 or a net of 18,000 a year. The second budget is based on 23,000 or collecting 20,700 per year. And the last one is 25,000 or collecting a net of 22,500 a year. We are basing our collections on 160 members. This is how the collections of the membership dues will appear, assuming the different options that we have provided. The next slide is an additional income that we could have if we are able to bring in at least 20 new members per year. We are going to propose either of the 3 options plus increasing the entrance fee from 3,000 to 5,000 for new members. This does not affect you because you're all current members. So this is only going to be for the new members. We have not put any revenue for charity. It's because that this income or the revenue from charity will not go in any way to the operating expenses of the chamber. The next slide is the income that there used to be on other receipts like email blast, guest fees, and visa endorsements. The income here has greatly reduced because many visas are given on arrival and there are less endorsement letters being required from the chamber. Thus, the revenue on this side for the chamber has dropped a lot. We do not see any income from forex transactions, thus we have not placed any amount for this. And lastly, we have some income on the fixed deposit that we have, which is totaling 200,000 per annum. So at the last column, you can see that the total receipts and other income, assuming those 3 options that we have provided. Now let us go to the budget that we are looking into next year. We used to have some expense for motorcycle, but since we have sold our motorcycle, we do not have any expense for that in the coming year. Salaries and wages, as you have heard a while ago, we are in need to hire an executive director. So we are assuming a pay of 60,000 a month, plus to upgrade our secretariat, at least 2 of them at 20,000 a month. We are looking at a monthly expense of 100,000 a month, or an annual expense of 1.2 million a year. Our de minimis is 96,000 in the last year, and we have adjusted that by 5% for inflation and placed on the budget 100,000 per annum. COLA remains the same. 13-month pay is 100,000 a month. 13-month pay is 100,000 a year, based on our 100,000 a month salary. So SSS, PhilHealth, and all this goes up proportionately with the increase in the salaries. The last increase we had was in the year 2011. So we are asking an increase after 6 years. And in 2011, after looking at the books, the cost per plate in our general body meeting is only 1,000 pesos. Today we are paying, after 6 years, 2,000 pesos. So we have budgeted 5 to 6 meetings at 120 members and 2,000 a head. That equals to 1.44 billion per annum. We could come up with special events, but we have cut this budget into half. So we have placed 200,000 per year. Board meeting expenses. This is the only expense actually being enjoyed by the board of directors. We are looking into a budget of 84,000, and this is for 12 meetings at 7K per meeting. There's normally a total of somewhere from 11 to 13 who attend the board meeting, including our past presidents and 2 of the staff. Representation expense. There are times that we have to meet with government officials and other chambers, so we have placed that at 10,000 a month or 120,000 per annum. Sponsorships, we have maintained the same like the previous year at 72,000 per annum. Legal contingency fund is a fund that we would like to have for the legal advice and preparation of position papers, which actually previously has been done by the board, by the directors, and it was a lot of work. So we are looking into getting some help from legal, and we have budgeted a cost of 100,000 per annum. We also have our professional fees for our auditor and retainer, which is adding 5% for inflation, and that's coming out to about 90,000 per annum. Insurance, just adjusting it by 5%. This is for the office premises. Dues and subscriptions, we are actually paying PCHI, and it includes the cost of the National Congress, and this is 13,000 per annum. Christmas expense is a budget of 1,500 per gift for about 15 persons, and this is 22,500 per annum. A nominal amount for miscellaneous, 10,000 per annum. Taxes, 500, and messenger expense. Today, the chamber does not have any messenger. We realize it's cheaper to hire messenger services rather than to keep a messenger, and we are saving some amount on that. Next, we have electricity and utilities, where we have projected a 7% increase. Dues, repairs, supplies, postage, and transportation, just an additional 5% increase. Scholarships, calamity, charity, assistance, ICAM, ads, and promo. If you look at it, there's actually no value in it. That's because we have a separate charity account, and anything disbursed for charity should be coming from the charity account. The membership dues will never be, or the charity will never come from the membership dues. So this is a totally separate account. Bank charges, we are making use of a safety deposit box, so we've allocated 2,000 per annum. Depreciation and amortization is a non-cash item, and write-off, we don't expect any write-off. So we have the total disbursements. Now, taking a look at the total disbursements against the total receipts, we are at a loss if we are only going to increase it to 20,000 or 18,000 net. We will break even if we have 20,700 net per annum, and we will make 300,000, a bit more than 300,000 if we increase it to 25,000 or 22,500 per annum. So what is the board's recommendation? The board's recommendation is to approve an increase of the annual dues from 13,500, which happened in 2011, or about 6 years ago, to a net of 20,700 or 22,500 net. And the increase of entrance fee of new members from 3,000 to 500, 3,000 to 5,000. This increase translates to only an additional 600 pesos per month or 791 pesos per month per member, whichever is finally chosen by the membership tonight.
Thank you, Haresh. Round of applause, please, for our wonderful treasurer. Okay, folks. So, Mafe, can you put back the slides, please, of Haresh, the last slide. So, basically, this, as you can imagine, undertook a lot of discussions at the board meetings, and there was a lot of worry that the increase is quite substantial. But we've shown you the numbers, and we're hoping that you will heed the request and the recommendation of the board. So there are two options on the table that we are recommending. Option one is out because it's clearly a loss. Can you move back? So this is option one, where your net juice is at 18,000. It's clearly a 490,000 peso loss. Option two at 20,700 net. We'll break even, practically. And a 22,500 net would give us a surplus of about 300,000. You notice from the presentation, we're very tight as far as the budget is concerned. So that's where we are today, folks, and we're open to listen to motions for approval. Questions, feel free. There are mics on the floor. Do we have any questions? Do we have any motions? Mr. Mirani? You're recognized, sir?
When I was sitting down, somebody was asking about having about 3 or 4 million pesos in reserve. Is that a charity fund, or is that a slush fund, or?
There is a 4 million peso, 4.5 million peso reserve. The board has resolved not to touch those funds because we'd actually like to find ways to increase that fund with the hope, if we are able to scale up our chamber with the way we'd like to, we certainly are going to need a bigger and better office eventually. So hopefully those reserves are not utilized for the meantime, and we could actually find ways to build on those reserves.
Well, then if you're on a very tight budget, then I guess the only option is to do the 25,000.
We defer to the wisdom of the general membership.
I would propose to just do the 25,000.
So are you finding a motion, Mr. Mirani, for a 25,000 gross and a 22,500 net? Is that right?
From what I'm seeing here, breaking even is not a choice. I mean, you have to make some money in case there's other things. You have so many other things that can happen in the chamber. So I would propose a 25,000. Looking at your numbers.
We have a motion on the floor for a 25,000 gross, which is actually a 22,500 net. Is there a second to Mr. Mirani's motion? We have seconds over there. Thank you, gentlemen. Lal, would you like to say something?
Yeah. First of all, let me congratulate you and all of you, Mr. Lal, Mr. Haresh, Mr. Raj, and Mr. Menuji. There was a very detailed and comprehensive presentation. I liked it, and I understood so many things which I had never understood before.
Thank you, sir.
Now, going back to increase of membership fees, first of all, what is important here is that there are several members who don't really attend the meetings. And then it will be not a good sign for people who don't attend, who are traveling, and who have very little chance of attending here. What I would like to propose is, I have been to other places, like Hong Kong for example. They charge whoever comes to the meeting. Membership fees are there as a basic charge, whatever it is. Then anyone who attends the meeting pays separately. I don't know if that proposal is viable. That is just my suggestion. That's all. Thank you.
Well noted, Mr. Lal. Thank you very much. Is there any other proposal or suggestion on the floor? Girish?
Good evening. Rex, in your PowerPoint presentation, you said invite as many people as you can to join. There are several of the youth or my age that are not actually coming, and you've given personal calls to a lot of us to come. A lot of us want to know what concrete things are in the agenda for next year to entice them to join. We just can't tell them, come and join, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Sure enough, Raj gave details, Uncle Lal gave details, but how does it help us is something that we all want to know to come in. I'm not speaking for myself because I have been attending for several years, but for everybody else, we want to know point-by-point agenda, meetings with other chambers, meeting with other organizations, how to bring them in as well. So,
Okay. If I may, the reason we are first concentrating on hiring that executive director is precisely there are so many ideas that we want to implement, but we physically just cannot do it if you expect your board of directors to do every single one. The ideas are there, right? For the next generation, we actually need some of you to come in and tell us what is it that you like. The information that we have is a lot of you like the networking, you like the seminars, you like all of that, right? But to do all of this, you need money, and you need a very strong back office to handle the logistics. And so we are now in step one. We're in step one. We need the funding to make that happen. The minute you guys approve this today, and I'm hoping that you do, we will then move to recruit and hire a suitable person. We may not get it right the first time, but certainly with the budget available, at least we can move forward. So the next generation, the reason I have been calling, members of our board has been calling, is because we really need you guys to come in. We'd like to put you in a certain committee, and you direct and tell your board what you need, and by all means, let's mount it. I hope I have satisfactorily. For me to come and give you a list right now is premature, right? But certainly we need the back office, we need the logistic support to make this happen. All right. So we have a pending motion on the floor to increase to 25, given about 5 dinners, roughly. We also have a suggestion to do it on a piecemeal basis. Each has its pros and cons. Generally, personally, when I look at it from a piecemeal point of view, it's not something the Indian Chamber has done in the past. There are certainly some chambers that are doing it. How that's going to reflect on attendance, we don't know. Is that a risk that we wish to take? Honestly, I don't know. So I will again defer to the wisdom of the general membership, but we're hoping that the proposal of Mr. Mirani is carried in the absence of any objection to the said motion.
Actually, what we were just discussing, that we have shown a while ago, most of the other chambers do follow that system. But look at their charges. They charge 30, 35, 40, 45, 50,000 without meals. So it could be a different budget, once again, if we have to change the system.
I think that was addressing your concern.
Yeah, we did look. Generally, what I see is whoever attends the meeting pays his share. So that becomes very practical. And that's the trend nowadays. If you're asking everybody to change their mindset.
So we have two